Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. If you've seen my previous video, you remember that I unboxed and installed the PASSAP Form Computer on my Duomatic 80 knitting machine. That was already a fun adventure by itself, but today the real test begins. Today I'm going to knit my very first sweater using the Form Computer. And I'm very curious to find out whether it makes knitting actually easier or whether it's just another vintage gadget with lots of buttons. So, let's put it to work. Now, since I'm going to knit with the PASSAP Form Computer, it's obvious I'm going to knit this project on my PASSAP Duomatic 80 knitting machine. A wonderful knitting machine. Normally, when knitting a sweater, I spend quite a bit of time calculating everything myself. How many stitches to cast on, where to increase, where to decrease, when to start the armholes, when to shape the neckline and so on. The Form Computer promises to do all of those calculations for me. Instead of constantly checking notes and patterns, it should simply tell me exactly what to do while I'm knitting. Now that sounds almost too good to be true, so let's see if it really works. Before I can start knitting, I drew 8 different sweater designs. And I wanted to make something simple so I could focus on the actual knitting. Something that would really let the Form Computer do its job. I decided on a simple round neck sweater with satin sleeves. And these are my 8 options. I played around a bit in 2 color designs with blue and orange, and I played around a bit with adding multiple colors. Some color blocking and some striped designs. I tried to design a sweater that is simple to knit, where the color changes don't require me to pay too much attention and at the same time make the sweater look interesting. And from these 8 designs, I decided to choose this one. The design with the multicolored stripes across the upper part of the sweater. I really like how the stripes add color to the sweater. So the lower part will be knitted completely in blue. Then, starting at the armhole, I'll switch to alternating blue, orange, white and turquoise stripes. Very simple and hopefully very effective. So what I had to do next was knit a test swatch to determine my gauge. Because without an accurate gauge, you cannot knit a sweater that will actually fit you. And you need an accurate gauge to knit with the Form Computer. Otherwise, the computer cannot know how to size your garment. So this is the gauge swatch I knitted. And I decided to knit this sweater with this yarn in these colors. This is coned yarn, 75% wool and 25% polyamide. And for thickness reference, for every 100 grams of yarn, you get about 420 meters. This yarn is also commonly used for knitting socks, as the polyamide gives it extra strength and durability. But you can also knit beautiful sweaters with it. And I knitted this test swatch for the stocking stitch, the jersey stitch, on stitch size 6. And I changed color for the stripes every 6 rows. And I really like how it all came out. So this is what I'm going to use for my actual sweater. Now, very important, when knitting with the Form Computer, you have to enter the gauge in the number of millimeters for 40 stitches and the number of millimeters for 40 rows. So I measured 40 stitches, and that is 135 millimeters. And I also measured 40 rows, and that's 94 millimeters. I also knitted a test swatch for the ribbing, and I have knitted a 1x1 rib on stitch size 3.5. And I also measured 40 rows for my ribbing, and I get 90 millimeters. So these are the numbers I have to input into the Form Computer for my gauge. Okay, next step is to get a pattern for the Form Computer. So where do you get knitting patterns for the Form Computer? There are several sources. First and foremost, of course, the actual manual of the Form Computer itself. It lists several patterns for babies, for children, for men and for women. And for every knitting pattern it lists exactly the Form Computer input in these tables. Then we have these 2 booklets. Form Computer 1 and Form Computer 2. And this booklet is all about set-in sleeve, sweaters and vests with round necks and V-necks. And this booklet is all about raglan sweaters, again with round necks and V-necks. And in these booklets, for every garment size, it lists these tables with all the form computer input and gives schematics with the exact sizing. And then there are patterns in PASSAP magazines. I grabbed 2 magazines to show you. There are all models listed, and this happens to be, what is it, 90s, 2000s fashion? Looks a bit like it. And all these garments go accompanied with knitting instructions with all the input numbers needed for the form computer to knit that specific garment. Now I want to knit a simple sweater with satin sleeves and a round neck. So for this sweater I'm going to select my pattern from this booklet. There are all satin sleeved sweaters in all different sizes for children, for women and for men. And to determine my size, I have a chest measurement of 102 centimeters. I'm going to grab the original PASSAP manual and look up the sizing chart. Okay, so women's sizes, men's sizes, children's sizes. And with a chest measurement of 100, you're a size 50, and 104 centimeters, you're a size 52. So since I am a size 102, I'm just in between 50 and 52. But no worries, I know a size 50 will fit me fine, it's just a little more snug, and I know a size 52 will fit me fine as well, it's just a little more roomy. It all depends on your preference. So, back to this booklet again, and I'm going to look up a size 50. I'm going to see a size 50, in this case this sweater has a width of 56 centimeters, and a size 52 has a width of 58 centimeters. And it's all personal preference, like I said, and for this sweater I'm going with a size 50. Now you can make adjustments. You can always size a sweater up, just a few centimeters. So I could turn a size 50 into a size with a chest measurement of 102. But for this video I'm just going to keep it very simple and I'm going to go with size 50 and use the measurements from the booklet. It will turn out fine. So this is the pattern I'm going to use. And every form pattern looks like this. A list of numbers that you have to enter into the computer. And these are the numbers I have to enter into the form computer for this pattern and this pattern size. So let's check all the blank lines and see if I have got all the measurements I need. It's A, B, 1, C, 2 and 3. And it's all explained in the front of the manual. So, A is the number of millimeters from my gauge swatch for 40 rows. I've got that. That's 94. B is the number of millimeters from my gauge swatch for 40 stitches. I've also got that. That's 135. Number 1, this is the circumference at the start of the knitting. So for a size 50, that's 2 times 56, and that makes 112. And I'm going to keep it that way and use these measurements. Number C, this is the number of millimeters from my gauge swatch for my ribbing for 40 rows. I've got that, that's 90. Number 2, this is the chest measurement. And for a sweater in a size 50, it uses a chest measurement of 100. And that's fine, I'm 102, but the sizing of the sweater is good. So I'm going to keep it as is. And finally, number 3, this is the length of the sweater. And since I'm a tall guy, I'm going to lengthen the sweater with 5 centimeters extra. So instead of 66, I will enter 71 centimeters for my sweater. Okay, so I've checked and I've got all the measurements I need for entering into the form computer for knitting my sweater. And this is the part that used to require a lot of calculations. Instead, I simply enter the provided numbers and measurements into the form computer. I'm going to start with the back of the sweater, which is column number 1. So I take the form computer, turn it on, and then I'm going to enter this column. And I'm starting with 101, and I confirm with the E button, enter. Next number, 161. 161, enter. A, this is the number of millimeters for 40 rows, which is 94. B, the number of millimeters for 40 stitches, 135, 140, 112, 112, And after I've entered 0, the form computer loops back to the beginning so you can check all the numbers. So I'm going to check the first number, 101, yes, 161, and you continue like this. Okay, everything is checked and the form computer tells me to cast on 166 stitches. Once all the numbers and measurements are entered, the form computer generates the complete knitting instructions. Now, I have to admit, knowing the machine does all these calculations for you is surprisingly satisfying, especially when you realize that this technology is decades old. Now, before I start, let's quickly discuss the meaning of the different numbers it displays and the function of the different buttons you can use during knitting. The form computer is going to tell me when to cast on, when to transfer from ribbing to stockinette, when to divide for the neckline, and so on. So basically all the knitting instructions. And it is going to do so by displaying numbers. Number 1 is to cast on, number 2 is transfer from rib to stockinette, and so on. The meaning is all explained in the manual. Then the form computer is also going to tell me if I need to make increases or decreases. The number of increases you need to make accompanied by a plus sign, and the number of decreases you need to make accompanied by a minus symbol. And you always make them on the side of the locks. Then you have also got some input buttons for when knitting the garment. And the most important buttons are 9 for go, to start or continue knitting, 8 to stop, to pause or stop when you are knitting, 2 to show me how many rows I have knitted. And that's crucial to reference check with the number of rows knitted displayed on your log. And then you have 5 and 3, 5 and 3, to go back and forth rows in case something goes wrong. So if I have to undo a row, I also have to go back one row on the computer, for example. There are more numbers and instructions, but it's all in the manual. These are, in my opinion, the most important ones to know when first using the form computer. Okay, time to cast on. And the form computer immediately tells me how many needles I need to cast on. And in this case, it's 166 needles. So there's no guessing, no calculating, no scribbled notes, just follow the instructions. And I want the form computer to start counting when I start knitting the ribbing. So I don't want it to do anything when I'm doing the cast on. So I'm going to click on button number 8, which is the stop button, and put it on pause. And now I can do whatever cast on I want. And I'm just going to do a standard circular cast on. Cast on is complete. Now I can continue with the actual knitting. So now I put the form computer on go, and that's button number 9, go. The beeping stops, my locks are on the right, and now I can start knitting the ribbing. And the form computer tells me exactly how many rows I've still got to knit. Locks are on the right, 20 rows to knit. Locks are on the left, 19 rows to knit. One more row to go. And the form computer blinks number 2. And the ribbing is finished. The form computer tells me exactly what to do, when to transfer from ribbing to jersey. Again, no thinking required. Well, almost no thinking. I still have to knit it myself, of course. Let's continue. Okay, so I have 167 more rows to knit, and then I get my next instruction. Let's continue knitting. Now, if you want to check during the knitting if everything is still alright, you can just simply press on button number 2 with the arrow down, and it shows you on what row number you are, in this case 74. So that's great to cross-reference with your logs. And my log is also on row 74, so I know everything's going according to plan. One more row to go. Okay, it indicates my log is on the right. And that's correct because my log is on the right. And it tells me to decrease 5 stitches. And this means we are at the start of the armholes. Log is on the left, that's correct. Also decrease 5 stitches. And I continue like this. Now it tells me to decrease 3 stitches. And now comes the fun part, the stripes. In my design I decided to start the stripes from the armholes up. And I'm alternating blue, yellow, white and turquoise. And each color is knitted for 6 rows. Now, this is where the design of the sweater comes to life. So I have to pay attention to when to change color for the stripes. But the rest is all done by the form computer. And normally this is where I double check every calculation. But with the form computer I simply wait until it tells me what to do. It instructs me exactly how many stitches to decrease. Honestly, it feels almost relaxing. The only thing left is to count for the stripes, but that's it. One more row to go before my next instruction. And it indicates my log is on the right, and that's correct, and I have to decrease 6 stitches. And decrease 6 stitches on the left. And now it is beeping and blinking number 5, and this tells me to cast off the remaining stitches. And I'm finished. The back panel is finished, and so far I'm actually really impressed. Instead of constantly wondering whether I'm following the pattern correctly, I can simply focus on the knitting. Every few rows the computer tells me exactly what needs to happen. Casting on, transferring from rib to jersey, decreasing here, increasing there, keep knitting. It's almost like having a knitting assistant sitting next to the knitting machine. The computer does leave it up to me to decide on the techniques to use. I am totally free in that and I can do whatever I want. So I can do any cast on that I like, I can choose the kind of decreases and the kind of increases I want to make. I can decide for myself if I want to bind off or use short rowing for shaping the shoulders. That's all up to me. And of course I still have to pay attention. The computer doesn't tell me when to change colors and it can't fix mistakes that I make. But it certainly removes a lot of the mental workload. Now let's continue with the front of the sweater. For the front of the sweater with a round neck, I turn to column 2A and I need to enter these numbers. And the form computer is blinking 1 and 166, means cast on 166 stitches. Based on the many sweaters I have already knitted in the past without a form computer, the front is basically the same as the back, with the exception of the cutout for the neck. Let's knit it and see how it goes. And the form computer is blinking number 3, which means I have to divide for the neckline. Once again, the form computer tells me exactly what to do. And in this case I have to split the knitting. No measuring, no calculating, just follow the instructions. Now, I have already said it a few times in this video, the techniques you choose are up to you. So for the neckline you can do it any way you want. I can take half of the neckline off the machine on decker combs and later rehanging when knitting the other half. Or I can knit it off on a waste yarn and later rehang it to knit the other half. Or I can put half of the knitting out of work with the needle pushers and knit on BX and later knit the second half. So the techniques you choose are up to you. I am going to put half of the knitting out of work with the needle pushers and knit on BX. Oh, and be sure to pay very good attention to where you are in your striping sequence. I have knitted 4 rows in blue. And then I have to continue with orange, so I have to remember that when continuing knitting with the second half of my work. Now, let's continue knitting. And the shoulders are shaped the same way as the back. I'm getting the same instructions. Everything happens step by step. -6. And now I also have to decrease for the shoulder shaping. And the form computer is blinking number 4, which means I have to set up for the second half of the shoulder. So for knitting the second half of the neckline, first I have to press go, so button number 9. And it immediately tells me that my locks are on the right and I have to decrease 6 stitches. Front panel also finished. Next are the sleeves. And for knitting the sleeves, it's all just the same. I think the phrase is rinse and repeat. You enter the numbers and the sizing you want into the form computer and you just continue knitting. And the sleeves are also finished. Now for the ribbed neckband. And in this booklet there's also a simple neckband pattern. It's this pattern and you can just knit simple neckbands really straightforward. Just enter the measurements you want. And I want a neckband of 43 centimeters around and I want it 2 centimeters high. And I'm also going to fold the neckband double, so I'm going to knit it 4 centimeters high. And then I'm going to knit it off on waste yarn. And the process is basically the same as you've seen me do before. Just enter all the measurements and the form computer tells you exactly what to do. And every part of my sweater is knitted, so a whole pile to sew together. So let me sew it together and we will do some conclusions on the form computer. And with the magic of editing, my sweater is finished. So, what do I think after using the form computer for knitting my first sweater? I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised. It doesn't knit the sweater for you, you still have to knit the sweater yourself, but it does remove almost all of the complicated calculations. Instead of worrying about stitch counts, row numbers or shaping, I can just simply enjoy the knitting. And honestly, that's exactly what I hoped it would do. So the big question is, will I use the form computer again? Absolutely. I think this is only the beginning. Now that I understand how it works, I'm already curious to see what other projects I can make with it. Now, if you've ever used a form computer before, I'm very curious. I'd love to hear your experience. Let me know in the comments. Did you enjoy using it, or do you still prefer calculating everything by hand? Or do you prefer other methods maybe for calculating, shaping and knitting garments? Now, a big thank you to my channel members for making these videos possible. Thank you. If you'd like to support me and my channel too, please consider becoming a channel member. There are several membership tiers available. Just click the membership button below this video. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, write a comment down below, subscribe to the channel. You all know the drill. Thanks. I wish you happy knitting, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!